Borthakur IAS Academy, an endeavor of excellence.
Borthakur IAS Academy.
Hello everyone, welcome to Borthakur's IAS Academy, Northeast's premier institute for UPSC, APSC and NPSC preparations. I am your friend Atreyi, and today I am here with another segment of Current Affairs 365 dated 29th of June 2021. This is your one-stop solution for all the important news and updates which will help you to prepare for your civil services examination, and along with it, it is also going to be beneficial for any other Assam state government services. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Facebook as well as Instagram. Now, without any further ado, let's get started. So now the first news is related to international relations. It will be tagged under GS paper 2 concerning, the subtopic will be India and its neighboring countries, okay? Effect of policies and politics of countries on India's interests, and also security challenges and their management in border areas. So recently the Chinese military, they have raised new militia units comprising local Tibet youth for high altitude warfare, okay? So these new units named as Mimang Cheton are presently undergoing training, and they are to be deployed mostly in upper Himalayan ranges, both in eastern and western sectors of the Indo-China border. And these units, they are being trained for a variety of tasks, including using high-tech equipment such as drone on one hand, and on the other hand using how to use mules and horses to reach regions in the Himalayan ranges that can't be accessed by modern means. They have been raised near the eastern Ladakh, which is the site of recent border tension along the line of actual control. So the line of actual control is the demarcation that separates Indian controlled territory from the Chinese controlled territory, okay? So these trained units, they have already been deployed along various locations in the Chumbi Valley and at the Rutog in Tibet near the Pangong So Lake in eastern Ladakh. And the deployment of the new Mimang Cheton units, it mirrors India's elite and decades-old force, which is known as the Special Frontier Force. And just like the Special Frontier Force, which relies on knowledge of Tibetans, the Mimang Cheton unit also relies on the local knowledge of Tibetans as well as locals' resistance to high altitude sickness, which is a common problem in the alpine warfare. So the main objective behind preparing such units is high altitude warfare, because these new units, they will be used for high altitude warfare as well as the surveillance for surveillance of that region. Then coming to the socio-cultural aspect, a new feature of this unit is that upon completion of training, they are being blessed by the Buddhist monks in Tibet, which is being interpreted as a sign of greater socio-cultural outreach to the ethnic groups of Tibet. This is possibly a new strategy to get some mileage in the Tibet region. And thirdly is the recent Chinese developments along the border. First is railway line. China has started the first bullet train line in Tibet linking Lhasa to Ningchi near the border with Arunachal Pradesh. This is going to be the second major railway link to Tibet after the Qinghai Tibet Railway, which was opened in the year 2006. This was all about the railway line. Now coming to highway, in 2021, China completed construction of a strategically significant highway which enables greater access to the remote areas along the disputed border with Arunachal Pradesh in India. Then the news of construction of new villages in 2021 was also there, okay, where the reports came that Chinese construction of 3 villages near the Arunachal Pradesh's Bamla Pass has been reported, okay. Then in 2020, some satellite images also emerged which shows the new construction of new village called Pangda, which was built 2 to 3 kilometers into what Bhutan sees as their own land, okay. Now what are the major concerns for India because of formation of these new units? First is the location, because such development in view of strategic location of Chumbi Valley creates a concern for our country. Chumbi Valley is a 100-kilometer protrusion of Chinese territory which is located between Bhutan in the east and Sikkim in the west. The valley's location has long resulted in concerns that it could be used as PEDs for launching operations, okay, to snap strategic communication link in the Siliguri corridor. Siliguri corridor is the narrow stretch of land which is located around the city of Siliguri in West Bengal, and this corridor, it connects northeastern states with the rest of the country, which is also sometimes known as what? Chicken's neck, okay. Then the next concern is China's strengthening position, okay. These developments have come against the backdrop of border standoff which began last year in May, and a rapid buildup of infrastructure on the Chinese side along the line of actual control, including airports, helipads, missiles facilities and air sites. These are a matter of concern for our country, specifically after the border standoff of last year. Now, what all India has done in this regard? First is that India has made their own high altitude warfare schools in Gulmarg, Jammu and Kashmir. Then India will now spend 10% funds of the border area development program only to improve the infrastructure along the China border. Then the Border Roads Organization, they have constructed the Daporijo Bridge over Subansiri River in Arunachal Pradesh. This was discussed before in one of my previous analysis, okay. Construction of Daporijo Bridge. This bridge is going to link roads leading up to the line of actual control between India and China. They have also built some tunnels, okay, at the Nechifu in West Kameng district of Arunachal Pradesh, and also another tunnel is constructed under the Sela Pass in Arunachal Pradesh. And moreover, along with that, many other constructional activities of bridges, then these type of tunnels, they have all of these has been constructed. The state government of Arunachal Pradesh has advocated selection of 10 census towns along the India-China border in order to stop people living along its international borders, specifically with China, from migrating to the faraway urban states of the state. Then construction of Siseri River Bridge. Then this Bogibil Bridge, okay. Bogibil Bridge is India's longest road rail bridge connecting Dibrugarh in Assam to Pasighat in Arunachal Pradesh. It was inaugurated in 2018. So all these steps has been taken by India in order to control this situation, okay. And India needs to be more vigilant enough for any new development in China near its border to protect its interest efficiently. Further, it also needs to build robust infrastructure in difficult border areas of its territory in order to ensure movement of personnel and other logistical supplies in an efficient manner. Secondly, we have the news regarding Attorney General of India. The central government has extended the term for K.K. Venugopal as Attorney General for 1 more year, and this is the second time that Centre has extended his tenure. Venugopal received his first extension of term in the year 2020. He was appointed as the 15th Attorney General of our country in the year 2017, and he succeeded Mukul Rohatgi, who was the Attorney General from 2014 to 17. And he would be in command of the government's legal defense in several sensitive cases which are still pending in Supreme Court, and it includes the challenges to the abrogation of Article 370 of the Constitution and also the Citizenship Amendment Act. Now, coming to the post of Attorney General, then Attorney General of India is a part of the Union Executive, and he is the highest law officer of the country. Article 76 of our Constitution provides for the office of Attorney General of India. Coming to his appointment and eligibility, the AG is appointed by the President on the advice of government, and he or she must be a person who is qualified to be appointed as a judge of the Supreme Court. The term of office has not been fixed by the Constitution, and procedures and grounds for the removal of Attorney General are also not stated in the Constitution. He or she holds office during the pleasure of the President and may be removed by the President at any point of time. Now, coming to duties and functions of the Attorney General, he is to give advice to the Government of India upon such legal matters which are referred to him or her by the President. Then second one is to perform such other duties of a legal character that are assigned to him or her by the President. Third is to appear on behalf of a government of the Government of India in all the cases in the Supreme Court or in any High Court in which the Government of India is concerned. to represent the government of India in any reference made by the President to the Supreme Court under Article 143, which is the power of President to consult the Supreme Court of the Constitution. And lastly, to discharge the functions conferred on him or her by the Constitution or any other law. Next is rights and limitations. He or she has the right to speak and to take part in the proceedings of both the Houses of Parliament or their joint sitting and any committee of the Parliament of which he or she may be named a member, but without the right to vote. Then the Attorney General enjoys all the privileges and immunities that are available to a member of Parliament, and he does not fall in the category of government servants, so he is not debarred from private legal practice. However, he or she should not advise or hold a brief against the government of India. Moreover, the Solicitor General of India and Additional Solicitor General of India, they assist the Attorney General in fulfillment of the official responsibilities. The next news is about a report on the cyber capabilities and national power, which has been presented by the International Institute for Strategic Studies. And here in this report, they have notified that India's offensive cyber capability is mostly Pakistan focused and regionally effective, but it is not tuned towards China. So now if we take a look at the key points of this report, then we can see that the report has done a qualitative assessment of cyber power in 15 countries. Here from the 15 countries, 4 countries have been viewed as cyber threats, okay, and they include China, Russia, Iran and North Korea. And 4 other states at earlier stages in their cyber power are at earlier stages of their cyber power development, and these are India, Indonesia, Malaysia and Vietnam. Here the methodology, it analyzes the cyber ecosystem of each state. Here state by state it means country, okay, and they analyze the cyber ecosystem of each country and how it intersects with international security, economic competition and military affairs. The countries are assessed in 7 categories. They are strategy and doctrine, governance, command and control, core cyber intelligence capability, cyber empowerment and dependence, cyber security and resilience, global leadership in cyberspace affairs, and offensive cyber capability. So the report has divided the 15 countries into 3 tiers of cyber power. First tier, it belongs to those in this category, those states with world leading strengths across all the categories in the methodology has been selected, and the United States of America is the only country in this tier. In the second tier, states that have world leading strength in some of the categories have been selected. They are Australia, Canada, China, France, Israel, Russia and the United Kingdom. Then thirdly, the states that have strengths or potential strengths in some of the categories but significant weaknesses in others have been selected. And these countries are India, Indonesia, Iran, Japan, Malaysia, North Korea and Vietnam. So as per this report, it provides confirmation that the durability of US digital industrial superiority will be quite long, okay, at least for the next 10 years. And this can be because the advanced cyber technologies and their exploitation for economic and military power, where US is still ahead of China, okay. Then coming to India specific observations, despite the geostrategic instability of our country and a keen awareness of the cyber threats that we face, India has made modest progress in developing its policies and doctrines for cyberspace security. And India has some cyber intelligence and offensive cyber capabilities, but they are mainly regionally focused, principally on Pakistan. India is currently aiming to compensate for its weaknesses by building new capability with the help of key international partners, including the United States, United Kingdom and France. India's approach towards institutional reform of cyber governance has been slow and incremental, with key coordinating authorities for cyber security in the civil as well as military domains. Then the strength of the Indian digital economy, it includes a vibrant startup culture along with a very large talent pool. The private sector has moved more quickly compared to the government in promoting national cyber security, and the country is also active and visible in cyber diplomacy but has not been among the leaders on global norms. It prefers instead to make productive practical arrangements with the key states. The fourth news is about National Statistics Day. And every year, Statistics Day is celebrated on 29th of June, which is the birth anniversary of Professor Prasanta Chandra Mahalanobis. You must have heard of his name specifically in the 5-year plan, right? He is associated with the second 5-year plan. He was a member of the Planning Commission and then also the founder of Indian Statistical Institute. Okay, it became a institute of national importance in the year 1959. Then also many of you must have heard of Sankhya, which is a journal, famous journal of statistics, right? So this day is observed to mark his birth anniversary and to recognize his invaluable contribution in establishing the national statistical system. The main aim behind celebrating this day is to popularize the use of statistics in everyday life and sensitize the public as to how statistics helps in shaping and framing policies. This year's theme is Sustainable Development Goal 2, SDG 2, which is to end hunger, achieve food security and improved nutrition, along with promotion of sustainable agriculture. The winners of these awards, Professor P.C. Mahalanobis National Award in Official Statistics for the year 2021 and also the Professor C.R. Rao National Award for Young Statistician 2021 will be announced. Okay, and in 2019 the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation instituted for this award of P.C. Mahalanobis National Award in Official Statistics for recognizing the outstanding achievements of official statisticians in central government, state government and other institutions. The ministry also recognizes the outstanding contribution for high quality research work in the field of applied and theoretical statistics, benefiting the official statistical system of our country through the Professor C.R. Rao and Professor P.V. Sukhatme awards, which are awarded in alternate years. Now, if we have a look at the life of Professor P.C. Mahalanobis, then we can see that he was born in the year 1893 and he is considered to be the father of modern statistics in our country, who founded the Indian Statistical Institute and also shaped the Planning Commission. As I have already mentioned, the Planning Commission, it replaced, the Niti Aayog replaced the Planning Commission on 1st of January 2015 and Mahalanobis also pioneered different methodologies for large-scale surveys. Then he also devised a statistical method called the fractal graphical analysis, which is used to compare socio-economic conditions of varied groups. And during his lifetime, he was awarded with many prestigious awards for his valuable contribution. And in 1930, he proposed the Mahalanobis distance for the first time, which is a measure of comparison between two data sets. Then in 1932, he founded the ISI in Kolkata, which became a Institute of National Importance by the year 1959. Then in 1933, he launched Sankhya, which is the Indian Journal of Statistics. And by the year 1955, he became a member of the Planning Commission and continued to work in that capacity till the year 1967. He was instrumental in formulating India's second 5-year plan, which laid the blueprint for industrialization and development in India. And in 1968, he was honored with the famous prestigious Padma Vibhushan Award. He has also been conferred with a large number of awards by many other international organizations as well. So this was all for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you all will like it. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'll see you all again tomorrow with another segment of Current Affairs 365 only on Borthakur's IAS Academy, Northeast's premier institute for UPSC, APSC and NPSC preparations. Till then, take care, keep learning. Bye-bye.
বৰঠাকুৰ IAS Academy প্ৰস্তুতি আৰু অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা
বৰঠাকুৰ IAS Academy